We all hit the gym because we want bigger guns. That's right, not those guns, those guns. And if you want to kick that kangaroo's ass and get bigger guns, that means you're going to have to do curls.
So you've decided you want to add some kind of a preacher bench or curl machine to your home gym, and perhaps you're on a bit of a budget. So today we're going to take a look at this budget piece from HVO, which is their 3-in-1 preacher bench and machine, and see if it's worth your hard-earned money or not.
Whether you like to do them with dumbbells, easy bar, or a machine,
I'm able to bring you this brutally honest review because I bought this machine with my own money for $130 on Temu, and I'm not affiliated with HVO. So if you want to see more reviews like this, please hit that like and subscribe button to get more of my content. Let's start with a quick overview of the machine. First, up front here, we have these curl easy bar stands where you can park your curl bar. Then we have the machine part of this bench. You see we have these weight horns where we can load the weight. We got the handles and a pendulum. Coming around the back, we have the height adjustable preacher pad. And then we have the seat, which can also adjust up and down as well as forward and back. It's pretty easy to adjust the different settings of the machine. You find these pop pins just about everywhere, so you can set the height of where you want your easy bar to sit by pulling the pop pin and then tightening it in. The preacher pad itself can be adjusted up and down with a similar pop pin. And the seat can also be adjusted up and down with this pop pin. And can be adjusted forward and back. I really do like the number of seating adjustment options, and I think you can accommodate just about any body size with a combination of all of these adjustments. So that's a really great part of this machine.
Unfortunately, the good news ends there. So let's move on to seeing what it's like to actually use this bench and machine. We'll start out with our easy bar curls. So as you can see, I've got my easy bar here on the stands. I'm gonna lean over and grab it. Whoa, a little unstable. And if we put our weight forward, we'll just keep that in mind. Now let's sit down, do our curls. Whoop. Yep. Therein lies one of the design problems. These stands are too far apart. And I suspect it's because they needed to space them out to make room for these large weight horns that are part of the built-in machine. So as a result, there's almost no clearance between where your plates would be on your bar. And so unless you have laser tight movements, you're going to end up clipping the stands with the plates on your bar. Now let's take a look at how this works as a curl machine. Pop out this handle, grab it, get comfy, and lift. And unfortunately, the results are once again disappointing. Now, there are a few problems here. One, the handle is not very comfortable, and most of the problem has to do with this angle. Most curl machines have a bit of a taper in the angle for the handles because it just feels much more natural and ergonomic as you do your movement. In this case, for some reason, HVO decided to make the handles flat, which feels just a bit more uncomfortable. But that's just the tip of the iceberg problems here. The biggest problem is the design of the pendulum. Now, if you take a look here as I lift it up, you will notice that the weight horns are positioned behind the pendulum. And what this does is it makes the resistance curve such that there is very little resistance at the beginning of the movement here when you're in the stretch position, which is what you want to emphasize for hypertrophy and getting those bigger guns. And as you lift the weight up, most of the resistance is here in the contracted position. And this is almost like just the bottom third of a prime machine, where if you're familiar with that design, where they have the three weight horns with one that will be positioned behind the pendulum, one in the middle, and one above. And when you place the weight above the pendulum, you typically emphasize the start of the movement. If you put it in the middle of the pendulum, you'll get a more neutral load distribution. And when you put it behind the pendulum, you emphasize the top, the contraction of the movement. And in this case, the last one is the only option you get. So again, there's very little resistance here at the bottom, and we're going to bust out our hook scale in a minute here to see just how bad it really is. And then it gets progressively harder as you move the weight up. Now, you also get the option to add resistance bands here, but that does little to fix the problem because the nature of resistance bands is, again, you get no resistance at the beginning of the movement and then progressively more resistance at the top of the movement. So it really does very little to fix the core problem with the machine, which is a terrible resistance curve that does not support the latest science on hypertrophy. So overall, this machine is a huge disappointment. Wait a minute, didn't they say this is a 3-in-1? So what's thing number 3? Well, you can also take this handle, put it out all the way like this, and then use this pin and turn it into a lever arm with a handle on it to do other stuff, like some kind of RDL things is what they seem to suggest. So let's see how that works. Not well at all, because it suffers from the same resistance issues as when you're doing curls. There is no resistance here at the bottom of the movement where you want the most resistance in the stretch position. And then all of the resistance is up top where nobody cares. So rather than trying to build useful features and actually make the machine good at what it's supposed to do, they just try to cram in more functionality, which is probably for marketing reasons, because if they say it's a 3-in-1, maybe they think that consumers will buy more of them. But again, it just contributes to this machine being a jack of all trades and a master of none. And again, it's just poor product market fit. If you think about people who are buying a preacher curl and are allocating the precious square footage of their home gym, chances are they already have a better way of doing RDLs and deadlifts and what other silly things they suggest using this lever arm for, which doesn't even give you any kind of proper resistance. So this is just stupid. Now I've got my scale out, so let's see what happens with the resistance in this machine as we go through the range of motion. So just as we pull off near the bottom, we see without any weight loaded, the machine is reading about 7 pounds. And as we move up to about horizontal, we're up to about 11 pounds. Okay. Now I have one 10-pound plate loaded on the weight horn, so let's see what readings we get through the range of motion. At the very beginning, we're reading about 12 pounds. And as we go through the range of motion and get to about horizontal, we are reading about 22 pounds. Now, going from 12 pounds all the way to 22 pounds is a huge jump. It's almost a
40-45% jump or so as we move through the range of motion, which again highlights just how bad this pendulum and weight horn design is. All right, now let's continue doing some load distribution science. So we have this handy little pinhole here, which is used to lock the handle, but I'm going to use it for something else. I happen to have this gym pin here, which happens to be just the right diameter to fit in here. So let's see what happens when we move the plate from the weight horn, which is set back here, and we stick in this gym pin, and now we put our plate on this gym pin. Now we've got our scale here. So let's see how much it reads at the very beginning of the movement. And now it's reading 18.5 pounds. And as we move the load up, we go up to about 23.5, maybe 25, 24 pounds. So what does that tell us? This is obviously a much better resistance curve because now the jump in weight is only about 20 to 25% instead of 50% as we saw before. So had they just put the weight horns a bit forward rather than putting them behind the pendulum, that would have made the machine considerably better. Well, unfortunately, this machine is a bust. So let's take a moment to think about how did HVO arrive here and end up building this. I bet one of the first issues that is contributing to it is cost cutting. So had the machine been good at least something, like being a proper preacher easy bar stand where I could comfortably park and use my easy curl bar, it would have at least been redeemable. But now let's take a look at these ridiculously long weight horns. Now, why would they need to be this long? I'll tell you why. I bet it's because the factory that makes this machine only makes these weight horns in one size. So let's take a look at the rest of their lineup, and we'll see that it does look like it's the same weight horn on the rest of their machines. And so, because they didn't want to make new tooling for the factory to make a more conservatively sized weight horn, they had to just take whatever they had from the parts bin and slap it on the machine. Now, as a result of that, they realized they couldn't clear these stands. And even as the design is today, again, there's very little space here, which you already saw causes some ergonomic issues when loading and unloading your plates. And that's why these guys here are so far apart, because they had to accommodate for these ridiculous weight horns because they were too cheap to make shorter ones, and therefore made the machine a lot less usable. Secondly, and this I don't know, maybe they all skipped their physics lessons. I don't know why they decided to put these weight horns behind the pendulum.
Why? But why?
To effectively make the load curve as bad as possible. It's the exact opposite of what you would want. I suspect they did it again for some kind of ergonomic reasons, maybe because they wanted to give you some space to be able to load the weight horns. And again, all of this I think is driven by their cost cutting limitations and the fact that their factory only makes these weight horns in one size. So if I were to redesign this machine, one, I would probably bring these a lot closer together and then maybe change this pendulum to use a single weight horn design, maybe offset it a bit or do some other tricks like that, because their actual preacher curl machine seems to have appropriate design features. So yeah, I really don't know what they were thinking with this machine, but unfortunately, this is a piece of junk. But now that I have it, I guess I'm stuck with it, and maybe I can still fix it.
I can fix her.
Now in the next video, I'm going to try and fix this machine by changing the resistance profile on it by either attempting some hacks to this pendulum or adding some cable resistance. So if you want to see that video, please hit the subscribe button so you know when it's posted, and hopefully catch you in the next one.